In the heart of the Galactic Empire, alien dignitaries sat in silent apprehension, their focus on the central figure cloaked in shimmering crimson robes, a member of the High Council. Around him, generals, tacticians and bureaucrats deliberated on a single subject: Commander Ronan, the human soldier. "Commander Ronan continues to be a thorn in our side," the counselor declared coldly. "His latest victory on Drinker Prime has destabilized our control over the frontier systems. The Empire cannot afford his continued defiance." Whispers rippled through the chamber. An insectoid general clicked his mandibles in frustration. "These humans, weak and undisciplined. How has this one repelled our forces repeatedly? We've crushed rebellions 100 times larger." The counselor's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Humans have always been underestimated by the Empire. We forget their unpredictability, their ability to adapt under pressure. Commander Ronan is a soldier unlike any other." As the Empire schemed, on a distant outpost planet, Commander Ronan sat alone. His weathered hands wrapped around a cup of bitter brew, thoughts far from the current battlefront. Beneath his stoic, scarred exterior simmered an unspoken burden. Ronan lived by routine, missions, reports, battles. It kept him focused, kept the darkness at bay. But lately, thoughts of his upcoming wedding had sparked a strange feeling of hope, one he hadn't allowed himself in years. His fiancée Lydia had been his anchor through distant battles, keeping him grounded with messages and calls that reminded him there was something worth fighting for beyond the bloodshed. Soon, they would be together. He had promised her the next battle would be his last. But the galaxy had other plans. The night sky above Ronan's outpost was an endless black expanse dotted with stars. He stood outside, staring upward, a rare moment of peace. Yet even in the silence, a cold shadow loomed. Warm sunlight bathed the open garden where Ronan and Lydia's ceremony was about to begin. Exotic flowers lined the pathway, their iridescent petals shifting colors in the gentle breeze. Ronan stood at the end of the aisle in a tailored black suit, hardened features softened by a rare expression of joy. He glanced over the small gathering, trusted comrades, family, and diplomats who had come to witness their union. For the first time in years, Ronan felt the familiar tightness in his chest release, as if every burden he carried melted away in Lydia's radiant presence as she walked toward him in a flowing white gown. They exchanged private looks filled with promises of a peaceful future as the officiant began to speak. But just as they started their vows, Ronan noticed an unnatural ripple in the sky. His military instincts flared to life. Lydia squeezed his hand reassuringly, whispering, "It's all right, you're safe now." He wanted to believe her, to let this perfect moment remain untouched. But a nagging unease settled in his gut. The Empire had hunted him for years. They knew about the wedding. He should have known they wouldn't let him escape their grasp so easily. Suddenly, the ground shuddered. A low hum rose in the distance, followed by the unmistakable shriek of energy weapons charging. Panic tore through the crowd. "Get down!" Ronan bellowed, pushing Lydia behind him as sleek alien crafts descended. The assassins moved with lethal precision, clearly aiming for a quick kill. Ronan's mind snapped into combat mode as he rushed the first attacker, disarming and crushing his windpipe with brutal efficiency. But there were several more, and Ronan realized with horror that they would go for his most vulnerable point, Lydia. Time slowed as he saw an assassin slip past, blade aimed at her. Ronan broke into a sprint, roaring her name in desperation. But it was too late. The blade sank into Lydia's side and she crumpled into his arms, her once pristine gown stained crimson. "Stay with me, please," he begged, pressing shaking hands to the wound. But it was too deep, too final. "I'm sorry," she breathed, her eyes struggling to focus on him before slowly closing forever. In the weeks following Lydia's death, Ronan existed in a state of suffocating isolation. Physically, he recovered. But the gnawing ache in his chest, the guilt and grief and white-hot rage, threatened to consume him. His comrades reached out, offering words of comfort that couldn't penetrate his numb exterior. He didn't need sympathy. What he needed was retribution. And for that, he'd need a team as skilled and relentless as he was. Ronan's search led him to a dingy cantina on a forgotten mining colony, the sort of place that existed on the fringes of the galaxy, far from the Empire's prying eyes. At a back table sat a lone figure, eyes scanning the room with predatory sharpness from beneath a pulled-down hood. Vanessa. Ronan took a seat across from the woman, a ghost of a smile flickering across her pale features at his approach. Vanessa was a deadly smuggler, hacker and saboteur with a deep-seated hatred for the Empire. Like Ronan, she had lost everything to their cruelty. Vengeance bonded them as much as skill. Taking on the Empire solo is suicide, Vanessa remarked, sipping a noxious-looking liquid. Even for you. Not solo, Ronan replied, sliding a hollow chip across the table. I'm putting together a team. The chip contained dossiers on a dozen insurgents, assassins, pirates and renegades, the best of the worst from across the galaxy. Each had their reasons for wanting the Empire razed to the ground. Vanessa scrolled through the flickering blue images, nodding her approval. Bold plan. Count me in. As word spread through the shadows of the outer rim, Ronan's team coalesced. They were bound not by honor or duty, but by something far more visceral: loss, defiance, revenge. Under Ronan's strategic command, they began striking the Empire with devastating precision. Munitions depots, slave camps, and crucial trade routes, they crippled Imperial operations across a dozen sectors. Yet Ronan knew these were glancing blows. To truly wound the beast, he needed to tear out its dark heart. Opportunity presented itself in the form of intercepted communiques detailing the movements of a high-ranking Imperial official, the same counselor who had ordered the assassination. Ronan immediately charted a course for the remote moon where the counselor would be overseeing a secret research facility. As their ship sliced through the obsidian void of space, Ronan's crew prepped for the assault, double and triple checking weapons and gear. The air crackled with barely contained violence, each rebel nursing their own personal venom toward their oppressors. The acrid stench of scorched plasteel and singed flesh choked the corridors as Ronan advanced toward the heart of the facility, his team fanning out to secure key sections. He could feel the counselor's presence like a malignant pull, an itch at the base of his skull demanding to be scratched out with laser fire and blood. He found his quarry in the central command hub, the wizened alien frantically trying to purge data banks before his inevitable capture. Crimson-robed guards fell swiftly to Ronan's ruthless assault, barely managing to squeeze off a few shots before crumpling to the floor in smoking heaps. Wait, the counselor pleaded, hands raised in supplication as Ronan leveled his blaster at the alien's skull. I can give you what you want. Wealth, power, your own sector to rule. You can give me nothing, Ronan growled, finger tightening on the trigger. You and your empire took the only thing that mattered to me. Realization dawned in the counselor's bulbous eyes half a second before Ronan fired, painting the command console with the contents of the alien's head. It was over too quickly, too cleanly. A part of Ronan, the part that ached and howled endlessly for Lydia, would never be satisfied. But it was a start. They stripped the base of intel and resources before reducing it to a smoldering crater, a pyre lit in the Empire's periphery. Let them learn what it meant to be hunted, to have their security and certainty ripped away. Let them fear the day Ronan darkened their doors again. Because he wasn't finished, not by far. News of the rebel attack spread like wildfire, hushed whispers speaking of a ghost from the Empire's past risen to enact bloody vengeance. Some called him a hero, others a madman. But to the beaten down and oppressed, he became a symbol of defiance, a sign that the Galactic Empire, for all its military might, was not untouchable. High Command scrambled to bury the story, to downplay their losses. But cracks were showing, hairline fractures in the edifice of control. Ronan's team struck again and again, unpredictable as a solar flare, implacable as an ion storm, leaving destruction and Imperial corpses in their wake. Ronan knew he was forcing the Empire's hand, driving them to desperate measures. He expected escalation, but the sheer depravity of their next move revealed depths to their cruelty he hadn't thought possible. A newly promoted counselor, eager to succeed where her predecessor had failed, devised a plan as merciless as it was precise. If Ronan's pressure point had been his wife, then they would find a way to twist that knife again, even in her absence. Ronan stared at the flickering hollow image, uncomprehending. It was Lydia, but not as he had last seen her, broken and bleeding in his arms. She stood tall, clad in imperial black, her once warm eyes hard as flint. "I did what I had to do," her image spoke, voice flat and unfeeling. "The Empire is the only path to true order in the galaxy. Commander Ronan is a dangerous insurgent, a rallying point for terrorist scum. I infiltrated his circle and positioned him for elimination." White noise roared in Ronan's ears, drowning out the rest of the Empire's lies. It couldn't be true. He would have known, would have sensed deception in her embrace, in her dying words. But doubt coiled insidiously in his chest, a traitorous voice whispering that he had never really known her at all. Had it all been a ruse? Every tender moment, every whispered promise a calculated move in a game he hadn't even known he was playing? His team watched him warily, gauging his reaction. They had all been betrayed before, burned by those they trusted. If Ronan broke now, if he let this twist of the knife hamstring him, their fledgling rebellion would collapse. "It's a trick," Vanessa voiced what they were all thinking. "You know the Empire's games, their mind phrase. This is bait, nothing more." Ronan clenched his fists until his knuckles ached, the pain anchoring him through the hurricane of rage/grief/confusion that threatened to consume him. Vanessa was right. He had let himself be blindsided, let his enemies dictate the shape of his fury. "No more. We continue as planned," he gritted out, forcing the words past the sand in his throat. "The Empire burned my world to ashes. I intend to return the favor." He threw himself into their next string of missions with intensified fervor, as if he could outrun the gnawing emptiness inside him. Strike teams crippled Imperial supply lines. Saboteurs destroyed cloning facilities and indoctrination centers. Assassins removed key players in the Empire's war machine with surgical precision. The Empire flailed, unable to predict where Ronan would strike next. They doubled down on their propaganda, painting him as an unhinged madman, a jilted lover seeking petty vengeance. But the downtrodden saw through the spin, rallying to his cause in ever-growing numbers. Whispers became ripples, ripples became waves. Decades of fear and oppression reached a boiling point, and scattered uprisings coalesced into a true rebellion under Ronan's banner. He found no joy in his victories, no sense of peace or closure. Lydia's absence was a black hole at the center of his being, a yawning chasm that could never be filled. But he had a purpose now, a calling greater than his own pain. When the Empire finally fell, crumbling under the weight of 1,000 cuts and the fury of a unified galaxy, Ronan was on the front lines to watch it burn. The ghosts of his past would never leave him, but perhaps now, he could begin to learn to live with them. As the celebrations swept across countless worlds, Ronan found a quiet corner to watch the stars. He imagined Lydia beside him, her smile soft and real, untainted by lies. In the end, despite all the Empire's cruelty and machinations, they had failed to destroy the one thing that truly mattered. Ronan's love for her, as constant as the cosmos, as unyielding as the human spirit. It would be his guiding light in the battles to come, the rebuilding and reshaping of a galaxy too long broken. For now, he let himself breathe, let the weight of a shattered universe slip from his shoulders for just a moment. The fight wasn't over. It might never be over. But as long as there were still those who dared to hope, to defy tyranny in all its forms, it would always be a fight worth having. And Ronan, the man who had lost everything and found purpose in the ashes, would be there to lead the charge.